Hello, this video is an opportunity to present you the state of the art of the Foresight Rare 2030 and particularly on the development of the policy recommendations and to focus on the top lines recommendations and next step with it. So let's go through these slides. The Foresight study was initiated by the European Parliament, funded by the European Commission over 2 years through a group of partners to implement a participative method, an iterative method, involving a lot of stakeholders in order to define scenarios and the preferred scenarios and the policy recommendations to get to this preferred scenario. And this is done because it's almost 12, 13 years since the adoption of the Commission communication on rare disease in 2008, or the Council recommendation for actions in the field of rare diseases, by which the member states mandated themselves, right, to develop the national plans. And with these efforts, we're pointing to the need of a new rare disease policy framework. So where we are in the process now, we started with the knowledge base. That was the first phase. From that, we derived the trends and drivers. After that, we developed the future exploratory scenarios at the horizon 2030-2040. And now we're in this last phase of policy recommendations, which have been running in the last 4-6 months and will end at the end of March. The stakeholders are a panel of experts, healthcare providers from the European Funds Network and managers in the healthcare systems, and representative of board of member states. There are also the patients themselves and the young citizens. I'll go through it quickly. So the project partners are the one involved in joint actions before, and the one providing also some quantitative analysis like the Imperial College London or EasyNova for the methodology on Foresight, and the European Network with two proxies, the networks on metabolic diseases and on bone diseases. The Research Advisory Board, composed of people with experience who have been in position of decision making for policy on rare diseases at the European Commission, DG Santé or DG Research, but also today at WHO, or leaders of the community and the joint actions, or specialists in foresight or in technology. The panel of experts is composed of 250 experts, and they have been working in groups, 8 to 10 groups, covering different topics. I'll get back to that. So where we are in terms of the outcomes now. So the knowledge-based summaries are available online on the website for each of the areas. For diagnostic, for data collection and utilization, for integrated medical and social care, for partnership with patient organization, for the availability and access to our medicinal products, etc. The 12 trends identified before, we have that, and we have a bigger document of 40 pages also available on the website. And these trends in rare diseases are being positioned within relevant broader trends in health and healthcare in general, and by type of trends between technological, economic, policy, social, cultural. These trends have been grouped around access to treatments linked strongly to equity and healthcare budget, and patient-led research very much linked to new technologies, multi-stakeholder network and empowerment. And this interrelations analysis was performed with the experts in the panel of experts. The scenarios are organized around two axes: the type of innovation, so either it's a market-led innovation or it's a patient needs-led innovation, but the horizontal axis is around social attitude towards solidarity between individual responsibility, focusing on my disease, my country, my problems, but also leaving it to the patients to cover their expenses and etc., or the collective accountability, right? So we're familiar with that. And the preferred scenario at the European Conference on Rare Disease, voted by the 800 participants, is scenario investment for social justice. This means that it's the preferred scenario, the scenario we're going to try to get to by 2030, but it doesn't exclude the 3 other scenarios where part of the scenarios are relevant anyhow and desirable, but also we will prepare for the risk of falling into one of these alternative scenarios. So there is really the 2 aspects into it. And the wildcards have been identified. One of them, guess what? It's COVID-19, and that runs far beyond rare disease and health, clearly. I don't need to expand. So now we are in the backcasting policy scenario. So that's the phase 4, developing the policy recommendations into an overall scenario in order to reach the preferred future scenario. And that was performed through a strong involvement at that level for the development of recommendations with the clinicians of the European Reference Networks, with the managers of the healthcare system and of the hospitals, and with representatives of board of member states and few patients representatives into the ERNs. And we worked on governance and strategy. We work on integrating this European Reference Network into the national healthcare system. We work on European Reference Network with research and data collection and use, so the ecosystem of data, but also the role in delivery of virtual care and virtual care delivery, and cross-border healthcare. The second, and that's how we worked with the group of experts from the ERNs in structuring the links between the different possible policy actions and their consequences. We worked also with the panel of experts into 8 groups: political and strategic framework, data collection and utilization, availability and accessibility to orphan drugs and medical devices, basic clinical and translational or social research on rare diseases, diagnostic, integrated care, social and holistic approach, rare disease patient partnership, and access to healthcare. And then we merged the 2. We cross over what was coming from the ERNs and clinicians and from the experts. And some of these recommendations have been submitted to a consultation of families and patients in Europe with the tool Rare Barometer survey. The survey has been sent in December to 15,000 families and patients. They are answering currently. It will be closed soon, and that will be informative results to see what is priority for patients and families really. And in addition, we also have the perspective of the young citizen, which I love particularly. 27 young citizens, which are not lay citizens. They are citizens from the rare disease community, but less than 30 years old. Either they are patients, they are relatives like brothers, sisters, or partners. They are healthcare professionals like doctors or nurses, or also researchers. And together, they have been working on what do they want for their generation 10 years from now, what kind of policy they want. And they developed it based on the same knowledge and trends, but in autonomy, not with the panel of experts, not with the ERNs, and not with EURORDIS. And after that, we also had regional meetings to look at it from the national perspective. What works for me in a future policy framework at the European level. And last, the quantitative analysis on orphan drugs done by Imperial College London. And here the trend is that by 2025, we should have about 50 new orphan drugs approved per year. And by 2030, around 600, 700 new orphan medicinal products. And this is based on the current trend within the current policy and regulatory framework without any change. So by bringing in some good changes, we might reach much more than that to address the unmet medical needs. So I conclude now with the preliminary recommendations. Where we are is that the Foresight clearly points out to considerable unmet needs for people living with rare disease, but also the remaining need for improvement in policies, in program, in services to address the needs of patients, but also the rare disease community at large. The main recommendations deriving from all of that are, I would say, 2 core elements. One is the patient unmet needs-led innovation. So innovation-led by patient unmet needs. You remember our scenarios with the two axes. And this innovation is in genetics, in digital technology, in healthcare organization, in medicinal products or devices, in good medical practices. All that is innovation, right? That needs to be supported, incentivized, funded, encouraged, structured, etc. The second is the performance, the measurement of performance in order to measure the improvement of health and well-being outcomes of the population of people living with rare diseases. And the key recommendation, top level obviously recommendations, is that by 2030 it's possible to have an earlier, faster and more accurate diagnosis, which potentially may translate into saying that diagnostic within 6 months after the contact with the healthcare professional, right? And then to derive the recommendations which we have now of what needs to be done between now and 10 years from now in order to reach that objective, that maybe 90% of the population of people with rare diseases have a diagnostic within 6 months after the first contact with the healthcare professional. The second and third are the holistic approach to the person needs and the improved access to high quality integrated medical and social care. So there is the fact that putting the person at the center, looking in a holistic way, not only at the health aspect, but also the social integration and the different psychological support, etc. So that all the needs in terms of medical and care, and to integrate them, to have that kind of approach in the pathway from the moment of the diagnostic and all along during the life. And also the holistic approach between care and research. The line is blurring. Care and research, it's clear from the Foresight, goes together. And this is powered by digital technology and data analytics. And it takes us to core actions in terms of standardization, in terms of interoperability, in terms of capabilities. So what kind of human resources and equipment we need at the point of care in order to reach that goal, to have the center of care which is competent, able completely into sharing data and all that, both for healthcare and for research. And last is to improve the availability, accessibility, affordability, and sustainability of medicinal products. And that addresses both the research and development part, the regulatory and incentivization, but also the market access, patient access to it. Which, to conclude, tells me to the framework, the policy framework of Europe is that the Court of Auditors, in its report on the implementation of the Directive on Cross-Border Healthcare, has agreed with the European Commission that before 2023, there is a need to update, adapt, or replace the current policy framework. And this objective has been reinforced by the new Director General of DG Santé and her deputy. So we are on track, I would say, to use the Foresight as a basis to assess the impact of the past or the current policy framework and to see how to update, adapt, and replace. And what we see in this Foresight is that we can move from building the infrastructure, creating centers of expertise, registries, awareness, etc., to improving health and well-being outcomes. So to measure qualitatively the outcome, the impact, and to quantify that. The Foresight looks obviously at the ecosystem at large, so national, European level and different stakeholders, the role of each stakeholder and the different part of the ecosystem to reach these objectives. And there is a new window of opportunity with the European Health Union and the EU for Health Programme and the new multi-annual financial framework, all activities we have had in the last 2 years for a new policy framework to complement and guarantee success of these large initiatives by addressing rare diseases more in the long term rather than with unsustainable project development. And we're positioning also this Foresight, the outcome of it, in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations to guarantee human rights, and particularly at the objective of leaving no one behind. So looking at the most rare diseases, also the long tail of the 6,000 most rare diseases. The conference is 23rd February, 1:30 p.m. European Continental Time, to present the final recommendations. At that time, there will be documents detailing the recommendations per areas, and there will be some sort of theory of change and how we want to create that change by 10 years from now. And we should not forget that the Foresight utility is immediate to inform our reflection and our actions while preparing for a better future, and also building the capacities of around 300 people, stakeholders in Europe, being on the same page and same vision, and able then to disseminate, evangelize, I would say, in their respective constituents group. I'm looking forward to see you at this conference, and we're available for any question. Thank you.